Hey Reddit, before we start, I just want to say that this is our new channel, and we're working really hard to bring you the best stories. So make sure to subscribe and support us. Let's start the story. Let me tell you about the absolute nightmare of a neighbor I had to deal with. This man, let's call him Jake, thought my driveway was his personal parking space. It started off as an occasional thing, and I didn't think much of it at first. I figured maybe his driveway was full, or maybe he was having visitors over. But then it became a daily occurrence. Every morning, I'd walk out to find his car sitting right there in my driveway, like it belonged to him. Now, to be clear, I live in a single-family home with a driveway that can fit 2 cars. But I only have 1 car, and I like the extra space for guests or deliveries. Plus, it's my property. I pay for it, I maintain it, and I should be the only one deciding who gets to park there. But Jake? He didn't seem to care. At first, I thought maybe he just didn't realize it was a problem, so I did the neighborly thing. I knocked on his door and politely asked him to stop. His response? A half-hearted, "Oh, yeah, sorry about that," followed by a dismissive wave. The next morning, his car was in my driveway again. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just forgetfulness. This was sheer entitlement. I decided to escalate slightly. I left a note on his windshield, explaining once again that he was parking on private property and that I didn't want to have to take further action. Did he care? Nope. The next morning, I woke up to find his car in the exact same spot. My note crumpled and tossed onto my lawn. Now I was mad. I confronted him again, this time a little more firmly. I told him he was trespassing, that he needed to move his car, and that if he didn't, I'd have it towed. He had the audacity to laugh in my face. "What's the big deal? You've got space," he scoffed. "It's not like you're using both spots." That was it. That was the moment I knew I wasn't dealing with a reasonable person. I was dealing with someone who thought he could just do whatever he wanted because he didn't respect other people's property. If he wasn't going to listen to polite requests, I'd just have to make sure he had no choice but to stop. The next day, I called a towing company. I had no idea how quickly they'd arrive, but luck was on my side. Within an hour, a tow truck rolled up, hooked Jake's car, and hauled it away. I didn't even have to see his reaction right away. He wasn't home when it happened. But later that evening, I heard loud, angry knocking at my door. I opened it to find Jake standing there, fuming. "Where the hell is my car?" he demanded. I shrugged. "Oh, you mean the one that was trespassing on my property?" "Yeah, I had it towed." His face turned bright red. "You can't do that," he yelled. "Oh, I absolutely can," I said, crossing my arms. And I did. He threatened to call the cops, and I told him to go right ahead. I had documented everything. Photos, timestamps, the note he ignored, and even a record of our conversations. If anything, I welcomed the police getting involved because I knew I was completely in the right. Jake stormed off, slamming his door so hard I thought the hinges might break. But that wasn't the end of it. The next morning, he was back, this time, with an even pettier move. Instead of parking in my driveway, he parked right at the very edge of it, just enough to make pulling in and out a hassle for me. I knew he was trying to provoke me, but I wasn't about to take the bait. Instead, I came up with an even better plan. I reached out to my city's parking enforcement and asked if what he was doing was legal. Turns out, parking that close to someone's driveway was a violation, and the next time he did it, I called them up. They ticketed his car right in front of me while I stood on my porch, sipping my morning coffee with the biggest grin on my face. Jake was furious, but what could he do? He couldn't argue with city regulations, but being the stubborn idiot he was, he still didn't learn his lesson. The next day, he parked there again, and again, I called parking enforcement. Another ticket. After 3 days of this, Jake finally seemed to get the message. He stopped parking near my driveway altogether. I thought I had won. I thought the battle was over. But oh, how wrong I was. A week later, I woke up to find that someone had egged my car. I had a very strong suspicion of who was responsible, but I had no proof. So instead of confronting him, I did something even better. I installed security cameras. Not the cheap kind. Either, I went all out. High definition, night vision, motion detection, the works. If he so much as sneezed in the direction of my property, I'd have it on tape. Sure enough, a few nights later, I caught him red-handed. He snuck into my driveway and let the air out of my tires. I watched the footage, grinning, because now I finally had the proof I needed. The next morning, I didn't say a word to him. Instead, I walked straight to the police station and filed a report. I handed them the footage, and within a day, an officer was knocking on his door. I didn't hear the whole conversation, but I did see the look on Jake's face. He looked absolutely defeated. From that day forward, Jake never so much as glanced in the direction of my driveway. His car stayed parked in his own spot where it belonged. And as for me, I finally got my peace and quiet back. But the best part? A few months later, Jake put his house up for sale. Whether it was because of me or other reasons, I'll never know. But I like to think I had something to do with it. And that, my friends, is how I got rid of the most annoying neighbor I've ever had. A few weeks passed after the police paid Jake a visit, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I actually enjoyed pulling into my own driveway without dealing with his nonsense. He kept his distance, barely even making eye contact whenever we crossed paths. It was a welcome change, but something in me told me this wasn't over. Jake was too stubborn, too entitled to just let things go. He might have backed off for now, but I had a feeling he wasn't finished trying to get back at me. And sure enough, I was right. One evening, just as I was settling down for the night, I heard a loud bang outside. At first, I thought it was just some kids messing around in the neighborhood, but then I remembered, this wasn't just any neighborhood. This was a place where Jake lived, which meant anything was possible. My stomach twisted as I grabbed my phone and pulled up the live feed from my security cameras. And there he was, standing right by my mailbox, looking around nervously. He had something in his hand. It only took me a second to realize what it was, a baseball bat. My jaw clenched as I watched him wind up and take another hard swing, smashing my mailbox into pieces. The metal crumpled, the wooden post splintered, and my blood boiled. This guy just didn't know when to quit. I watched as he quickly jogged back to his car, glancing around to make sure no one had seen him. But the fool must have forgotten about the security cameras. Every single second of his little tantrum was caught on tape. At this point, I was beyond done. With him. I had given him chance after chance to be a decent human being, but he had thrown every single one away. The next morning, I drove straight to the police station, armed with my security footage. The officer at the front desk recognized me from the last report I had filed, and as soon as I showed them the video, they knew this was serious. Vandalism wasn't just some minor parking dispute, it was a crime. And this time, Jake wouldn't be able to laugh it off. Later that day, I was at home when I heard loud knocking at Jake's door. Peeking through my window, I saw two officers standing outside. Jake opened the door, looking half asleep, probably thinking he was going to get off with another warning. But the moment he saw the officers' expressions, his smirk faded. They told him exactly why they were there. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught enough. Destruction of property, evidence, and consequences. At first, Jake tried to deny it, waving his hands and acting like he had no idea what they were talking about. But the second they mentioned the footage, his whole demeanor changed. His shoulders sagged, his face paled, and for the first time since this whole mess started, he actually looked worried. There was no way out of this one. He was given a hefty fine in order to replace my mailbox. And to add to his humiliation, one of the officers stuck around to make sure he actually did it. The next day, I stood on my porch, arms crossed, watching as Jake begrudgingly installed a brand new mailbox for me. He didn't say a word. Not an apology, not a single complaint. Just silence. His face was red with embarrassment, his hands working quickly like he just wanted to be done with it. I could practically see the anger simmering beneath his skin. But this time, he had no power. I had one. And then, just when I thought this was finally over, something even better happened. A few days later, a for sale sign appeared on Jake's front lawn. I almost couldn't believe it. Was he really packing up and leaving? I watched closely over the next few weeks, and sure enough, moving trucks started pulling into his driveway. He wasn't just leaving, he was getting out for good. The day he finally moved out, I happened to be outside, watering my lawn. He looked over at me for the first time in weeks, but there was no smug grin, no cocky attitude. Just a defeated man loading the last of his boxes into a truck. I gave him a little wave, just to rub it in. He didn't wave back. Instead, he climbed into his car. The same car that started this whole mess, and drove off without a word. A few weeks later, the new neighbors arrived. And let me tell you, they were a complete breath of fresh air. The first day they moved in, they actually walked over, introduced themselves, and asked if they were parked okay. I almost laughed out loud at how different they were from Jake. They even brought over a small basket of cookies as a way of saying hello. It was like the universe had decided to reward me for putting up with all that nonsense. As I stood there, looking at my brand new mailbox, my perfectly clear driveway, and the peaceful neighborhood I had finally gotten back, I knew one thing for sure. Jake had messed with the wrong person, and in the end, he paid the price for it.